Welcome back to Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic. I'm Brittany. I'm the Seeker.
And I am Jonathan, which by process of elimination continues to make me the skeptic.
Uh, Today we are here with Kelly Whitney. Kelly is someone that I've known for a while through different circles that we were both in when I lived back in New York. I think we met. You came to one of my workshops. I think that's how we
Yeah,
first met. Yeah,
crystal
crystal
grid.
grids. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. Yep. Yep. And then we collaborated together on some cases when I was doing therapy. Kelly was wonderful and she made me some referrals. She's a substance use disorder therapist and she's a mom of two awesome little guys who seem like they are just hilarious from her posts.
There's something.
Yeah, there's something. But we're very glad to have you here today, Kelly. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm fairly certain, just, from the different circles that we kind of ran in and, you came to some of my workshops and things like that. I'm fairly certain that you're a seeker, and that you've been kind of on a spiritual journey yourself. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've always been into metaphysical stuff, even from, being a little girl. Always collecting rocks when I was little, just into nature. Then I started to learn, more things and be turned on to crystals, excuse me, crystals and meditations and just being outside. I was a tomboy, never wanted to be inside. I never wore shoes. I'd always be outside barefoot. Um, so then I just, as I got older and older, I just learned more and more and read as many books as I could and went and talked to different people, got into anything I possibly could, got certified in Reiki, did all the things. And my kids kind of follow in my footsteps now too. They do the same thing. But as far as spiritual journey, I mean, going through a divorce and having to really find myself after being with someone for 14 years, is definitely I've ramped up my spiritual journey for sure.
Yeah. I feel like we were going through a very similar thing with divorce at the same time. I
Yep.
totally understand and it's nice because you had started that kind of journey for yourself before the divorce. So hopefully it kind of helped you. Like you already had a baseline of things that you could do to help you with your healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you bought your house recently, last year. And after you moved in, something started happening with your son. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I looked at a bunch of houses and going through the home buying process is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. It's an emotional roller coaster for sure. And some of the houses I could just, there was this one house I went to and I couldn't even go in the front door. I'm like, something about this house is creeping me out. Like, I got this really bad vibe. I looked at my realtor. I said, we're not going in here. She's like, okay, whatever, you weirdo. Um, and I absolutely refused. She's like, don't you just want to go in and look? I'm like, I feel like I would be in danger if I go in this house. I can't do it. So I finally, there was this one house and my realtor's like, nobody wants to move into it. Like, okay, whatever. Like, let's go look at it. At this point, I looked at like 70 houses and I was sick of it. So we came here and I loved it. I just got this really great vibe. Walked in, I'm like, I can see myself living here. Um, didn't get any weird vibes or energy or anything from it. So I looked at the thing and it said it was built in 1866 and it has a bunch of the
Wow.
original, it has all the original molding in the house, has all the original, like I sent you those pictures. It has like the bathroom fixtures and things like that, clawfoot tub, everything that was originally in the house is still here. They did do some updates for some of the stuff, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
old history in here.
Mhm.
There's a barn that was built out back in the 1800s as well. It has awesome stuff in there too. So yeah, so I bought this house. We lived in it for like a week, and my son was my youngest, he's 9. He was like, I don't want to go in the bathroom by myself. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? He's like, just will you just come in there with me? I'm like, okay. And he was scared of the bathroom. And I've never seen him that way before. So I'd have to go in the bathroom with him. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I didn't know if he was just scared because, this is mommy's house, it's not daddy's house. It's a different environment.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think about it too much, and I didn't get any like weird energy from it. Um, and then my toilet broke within the first week of living here. So
Oh man.
I know. So my friend came over, and he was helping me replace the toilet, and he's like, I don't like your bathroom for some reason. And I never told him that my youngest was afraid of the bathroom. I was like, okay. He's like, there's a really weird vibe in here. I was like, all right, whatever. So he was like, let's hurry up and fix this toilet so I can get out of here. So it was like 2 weeks later. We were sitting here eating dinner, and my friend called me. She's been known to, she has really great intuition. She is, been known to be a medium. And she's like, I gotta tell you something. She goes, I don't want to scare you or your kids. I'm like, all right, what's up? She's like, there's a ghost in your house. And I was like, okay, and then I started putting the pieces together. And she's like, I had this dream last night. She goes, there's a ghost in your house. It's a female, and she mostly is in your bathroom. And I was like, oh my God, what? And she didn't know any of this either. Um, so I was like, oh, what do you mean? And she's like, there's a servant who died in your house, and she's like, she's tied to your bathroom. She was a caretaker of your house and the children that lived in the house. She was a servant. And it's weird because like the bakery nook I have is like right attached to the bathroom. So like that's probably where like servants spent most of their time. So I was like, okay, like just sitting here trying to eat spaghetti. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, and she goes, you got to get rid of it. I was like, all right. So there's a crystal store in Minetto. It's new. And I was like, all right, let me like run down there. Of course, they were closed. She's like, you gotta leave a rose quartz. And I still had all my stuff packed for moving. I'm like, I don't know where my crystals are. And then all the other crystal stores in Oswego are closed on Mondays. So I was like, crap. So I had to wait till the next day. I went, I got a rose quartz. She's like, you got to write her a letter to give her permission to rest. But she's like, make sure you thank her for her time being here. And I was like, okay. So I wrote, the servant a letter saying, thank you for serving my home. Thank you for being here, but I'm giving you permission to rest. And I left it out with the rose quartz. The next day I woke up, and, I just went in there, and I'm like, is the quartz going to be gone? Like, what's going on? I don't really know, and nobody since then has said anything about my bathroom. My son goes in there, no problem. I didn't say anything to him about the ghost and getting, he's 9. I didn't want to scare him. And I also didn't want to sit in the bathroom with him for the rest of his life. So I didn't say anything. And there was nothing. Like the next day he went in there, he took a shower, he didn't say anything to me. I asked him, like, do you need me to stand out here? I gotta do laundry. He's like, no, it's okay. I'm like, all right. So I mean, I am a believer in all that stuff, but it's so weird when it actually happens to you. So I didn't really know what to believe. But then I took the letter and I took the rose quartz and I buried it in my backyard, and that's that.
Wow.
So, out of curiosity, what was the thought process behind specifically rose quartz?
It was like my friend told me to pick like a more healing crystal. So the rose quartz was one. She said that, or I could have given some like amethyst or something like that. But for some reason, she was so drawn to. She kept telling me over and over again, you have to give her a rose quartz. And I should have probably asked her more about why that, but I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was in this mode. I'm like, there's a ghost in my house. I gotta get this ghost out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, Brittany. I mean, you know so much more about stuff like that. I don't know if you maybe can think about why the rose quartz would be so significant.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't know. I mean, I'm just purely speculating, but if she died in the house in a tragic way, we don't know that, but it sounds like she did die in the house. I mean, rose quartz is really good for like heart healing,
Yeah.
so there could have been some like, why is she lingering? Is it something unfinished, unsettled? You know what I mean? And so maybe rose quartz was just the energy that she needed to kind of help support that transition.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I think about like rose quartz also is like a sign of unconditional love, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe even that servant, maybe her unconditional love for the children she took care of, the
Mm-hmm.
house or whatever, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Your friend who originally came over to help with the toilet, um, is he like spiritual in any way, intuitive in any way, or did he just get this creepy vibe?
He's not really. I mean, he entertains me with my ideas and beliefs. I don't know. I think he thinks I'm crazy half the time, but he's not into all the stuff I'm into, but he does listen. So he had no idea. He's like, I don't know why it just feels really weird in here. I was like, okay, you know. So no, he's not intuitive. Maybe he is. I don't know. Maybe he is now. But no, he has never claimed any intuition.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that he was picking up on something says to me, I mean, we're all intuitive, so
Right.
he's probably a little bit more intuitive than he gives himself credit for,
Yeah.
than he wants to be, maybe.
Right.
When your son was coming to you, and just being like, I don't like the bathroom, did he go into any more details about like what it was he didn't like, or?
He wouldn't give me details. My youngest is really like he is on the spectrum. He's a little bit harder when it comes to communication.
Mhm.
But he just kept telling me he just didn't like it in there. He didn't like it in there, and he couldn't really give me a reason why,
Mhm.
or express his reason why.
Yeah, but nothing with your other son, he didn't feel anything, or?
Well, my other son's a teenager and he barely takes a shower, so he probably doesn't go in the bathroom as often. But he hasn't said he never said anything to me, but also I barely see him because he's a teenager. So if he was in there, I mean, he usually blasts music and stuff when he is in there, so
Yeah.
he may not have even noticed anything.
It's interesting to me, and Brittany will, I think, could confirm this. As we speak to people about different things, I think you're maybe the third or possibly the fourth person to say, and the other conversations, these were people who are still around, but you're like the third or fourth person to say that you told someone that it's okay to go, and they went. Um, and I'm the last person to try to conflate you know correlation with causation. But it is interesting to note that there do seem to be some similarities between some of the things people are telling us.
Mhm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. We talked to my sister recently, and she was talking about like setting boundaries with ghosts, and she had a ghost that like followed her, and she told her, "You can't come with me to the next house," and she didn't. So it is interesting that there seems to be similar experiences between people where you can communicate with them and you can set boundaries and you can, kind of, in this case, it sounds like you help this spirit maybe get to a more peaceful state.
Yeah.
What do you believe happened? So you wrote the letter, you buried the rose quartz. What do you think happened from there?
I mean, I like to believe that she really just kind of was lost and was really just tied to this house and was never, I don't know, like, I when I have time someday, I will research more history of my house.
Mhm.
But I think that she just never got that to rest. So I think that maybe something tragic happened or something where she was stuck. As far as I know, I don't think there was a fire in my home or anything along those lines where someone would be stuck in the home, but I don't know if she was killed here or what, somewhere where she never left. Um, And so I think she just was never given the opportunity. This house, no one lived in my house before I bought it. It was inherited by someone else and they lived next door, but they never moved in. No one lived here other than the parents that passed and the son inherited the home. So no one's lived in here for years, like 20 something years. So I don't think that either maybe people before that lived here had any kind of interaction or maybe didn't feel anything or maybe they're not intuitive. But I just think that she was kind of lingering. And so it kind of felt, just being as like a mom myself and a caretaker to my kids, it actually made me cry. I just felt like she was given, some days as a mom, you just want like your kids to go away for like 1 hour just so you can have quiet time. But I just felt like I was finally able to just give her that time to rest. She no longer had to worry about taking care of people or all those things. So
Yeah,
it was kind of a peaceful, cool experience for me.
that's very cool. Beautiful too,
Yeah.
when you were telling us about like your friend calls you, tells you about what's going on, and you're like, I gotta take care of this. I gotta, get a rose quartz. I gotta do this thing. It seems like maybe there was some feelings of anxiety, about it, or like it was a little uncomfortable to know that there was a ghost in your house. Is that fair to say?
I think my anxiety was just, I didn't want, I mean, I firmly believe that spirits they have good intentions and they may have bad intentions. And so I wasn't sure and it was impacting my kid. So I automatically go into mama bear mode and I was like, we gotta get this ghost out of here. It's bothering, my son. And, um, then you trick yourself and you're like, oh, because I was in the shower that night. I'm like, this ghost is in here watching me take it, like, so then your mind goes to every story and
Yeah.
everything. So I was anxious because I didn't want I felt like I needed to get it out of there. One, because I was a little afraid. I was like, what? Um, Two, I didn't want to impact my son. And three, I didn't want to have to go into the bathroom with my son all the time. So I was like, we figured it out. We got to get this ghost out of here so all these things can be settled.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So there was a little part of you that was like, I don't know about having a ghost in my house, but mostly it's like, I just want to take care of my kid. I want to make sure that he's okay.
Yeah, because we have a ghost at work. Like a lot of people have seen it. I've seen it. And for some reason, if I see him, I'm just like, hey, what's up? And I don't care, and I just go about my day. But when it's in my own home, it's different. It felt different this time.
Yeah, I mean, your home's supposed to be like your safety zone.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. The ghost at work, you say you see him, is it like a full body apparition? Is it a shadow? What is it?
It's on and off. Sometimes it's a full, like, I'll give you one example. It's a man, he always has a red flannel shirt on, and we used to have groups at night, and group was over and all the clients had left, and there was still someone standing in the corner of a group room. And we turned the light on and it went away and turned the light back off. And a few minutes later, it was there again. And we're like, group's over, like services are closed, and then it would just disappear. So you would see it looked like a person, like an actual client was in the room standing in the corner. Other times it's like one time I saw it in the copy room and it was just kind of like a shadow. The copy machine started making copies by itself. And I was like, just wanted to get coffee. And I was like, oh my God, here we go. So I was like, I just want like coffee, like, hey, what's up? I'm just coming in here to make coffee. I talk to it all the time. Um, and I'm like, I'm just gonna get coffee. I'll turn the light off when I leave and shut the door, like that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Wow. Do you know what was in that building before Farnham?
That building's been all sorts of things. I know it was a factory, like back 1800-ish factory. It's been an attorney's office. We are a clinic that treats people with addiction, and we have people who do die. And so lots of patients pass away. They may come back to the agency. I don't know, I don't know how that works, but it could be a former patient. It could be someone who passed away, in the previous businesses. Not sure.
Yeah. A lot of different possibilities.
Yeah.
Would you say that you've always been a believer in like ghosts and spirits, or was there ever a point in time in your life where you were more skeptical?
I mean, when we're little, right, we're scared of ghosts, right? We're made to believe ghosts are scary. So, um, I had always believed that as a little kid, but I still remember, let me think. I think I was 17 and my grandpa died, and I stayed with my grandma for a few months 'cause she was, devastated. And I slept in her bed with her, and I woke up in the middle of the night and she was sitting on the edge of the bed and she was having a full-blown conversation with my grandpa, and I'm like, like, "Grandma, what are you doing?" She's like, "Your grandpa's here. I'm talking to him." And I'm like, "What the hell?" Like, okay. Um, so then I was a little freaked out and I didn't want to go in her room, but then I started thinking about it and I started to explore that more. And I had gone to my first medium, and I was like, this lady is going to be crazy. She's not going to be accurate. She's not going to tell me any information. She like was dead on, nailed everything, gave me exact details about all, like down to my cat. Like my cat came through in the session. She like described my cat, and there's no way she would know this information. So then I was like, oh man, like this. Then I got obsessed with it. So I was like, this is something. So that kind of sparked me from going from being like that scared of ghosts to like accepting that and believing in all that. So that's how I've been ever since. Since I was yeah, since I was like 17, 18, when I started to not be afraid anymore and just be more accepting.
It's
It's really
interesting that
interesting.
you went into that experience specifically with the medium, kind of from would you say a fairly skeptical mindset?
Yeah. My best friend had just died, and so I was like, I gotta connect with him somehow. Like, I feel like I've unfinished business. It was very tragic, and so someone had mentioned, why don't you, go see a psychic? And at this point, it was like there was like this crappy psychic in Liverpool, and I was like, I don't know, I don't want to spend the money. But then I had my friend Sam had told me about someone, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go see her, and I just didn't believe it. I thought she was just going to tell me, like standard, like remember that Call Me Now, Miss Cleo, like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
psychic. Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like
cold
that.
readers, cold
Yeah,
readers.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it wasn't. And I did connect with my friend, and there's things that she had told me that, again, no one would have known. Um, so I went in as very skeptical, but came out kind of in shock. And then she lets you record your visit. So I listened to it over and over and over again. I was like, yeah, this is real. This is a thing.
Was
Yeah.
this a long time ago, or
Yeah. Yep. But I go to her like 3 times a year
okay?
now,
So you
ever
you
since
have
then.
had subsequent experiences with a specific person, and you continue to feel that they are doing the things that they say they're doing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Interesting,
Wow.
very interesting.
And that story is just so interesting to me because it's like uh, almost two different parts of you, right? The part of you that's like, I want this to be real because I want to connect with my friend who just passed. I need that closure, right? And then there's the other part of you that's like, but it's not going to be real,
Right.
and you just needed, it sounds like the proof,
Yeah.
and she proved it to you.
Yeah. I know. I went there. It was funny because I didn't realize how bad, like how I did not grieve, and I kind of just pushed it under the rug. And then when I went there, I'm like, I am here. I want to connect with my friend. I didn't give her any information. She's like, "Oh man, your friend's bugging me. He really wants to talk to you." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." She's like, "But before we do that, your cat wants to talk to you." And I just lost it. I was like, if you listen to the video, I'm just sobbing. I think like my cat coming through was more emotional for me than
Oh,
my best friend. And she described my cat to a T. She's like, your cat used to hide because he was afraid of your husband. And I was like, yeah, because he used to yell at him all the time. Like, yep. Um, and then my friend came through and said stuff to me during that session that only him and I would know. So
mhm.
yeah, it was crazy.
So this is kind of a big question that I'm not really expecting you to have all the answers. It's really just about like your thought process. Like, how do you think all of that works? Like, you go to a medium couple times a year, you have a friend who literally just had this dream. How do you think that works?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think that, like you said, we're all intuitive in a way, but I think that maybe some people they don't realize they're gifted. They don't realize they have that intuition. They don't take the time. Like I say to my patients, it's so cliche, but you got to take the time to smell the roses. Like, stop and smell the roses. Like, stop living your life on autopilot. Like, if you know, when people are like, I had a gut feeling, okay, like, let's explore that, because people don't just have gut feelings. Like, that's something. Like, you have this intuition. When you have a gut feeling, that's intuition right there. That's something telling you, something doesn't feel right or whatever. But I don't think people take the time to embrace that part of their life or want to even acknowledge it. I know this kind of stuff has been more acceptable in society. But you even think about like witches, the society did not like that. They didn't like anything that wasn't, super Christianity. If you believed in anything that wasn't like that, you were seen as a witch, or you had a mental health disorder or whatever. But now I think it's more acceptable. I think people are starting to explore it more. But I think that more people need to really tap into that. And not be afraid. Think about it. How many times are there like ghost stories, or there's those shows on TV like Ghost Hunters, Paranormal Activity, all that stuff. Or people will go to horror movies and stuff like that, but they won't accept that there could be some, spiritual, like spirits. It's weird. I think people either are afraid to explore that, or they're just closed-minded.
Yeah.
They don't want to.
I think people like a cut and dried narrative.
Yeah.
There's so few things in life that are, solidly, this is step one, step two, step three on, and they kind of want there to be some overarching thing. And so they pick, in general, religion, I think, but also just like the way they choose to view reality.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like this whole alien thing, right? It's like blowing my mind. And I'm like, I knew it. I knew it. I'm like obsessed with this right now.
We are too, for
Oh
sure.
man, it's bad. I mean, one night I was up till I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for work, and I looked over and it was 1 a.m. because I was just so deep into conspiracy theories about this alien stuff and the government and everything. I was like, oh my God, I need to go to bed.
What are some of the things that you've been looking into, or that you've been
Oh, I'm
diving
just
into?
like, first of all, I watched the whole interview because I was like, oh man, here we go. So, just them disclosing, allegedly that they've had aliens and they've talked to aliens, like people in the government. And then I love people who are obsessed with conspiracy theories. And so then I started getting into those, and like, how we had the wildfire smoke. Well, I don't know if you guys had it, but we had it up here in New York, and
Oh
it was
no,
bad.
we got it too.
Did you?
Crazily enough,
Yeah.
10-hour drive away, we got it too.
Wow, that's crazy. But somebody was saying that the government was putting smoke into the air so they could hide the transporting UFOs in the sky. And oh man, I was in deep for that. Yeah.
Are you a believer that conspiracy could be real?
No, I don't believe in.
Okay.
No. I was like, or Canada could be up in flames and it has nothing to do with UFOs or government. But
Yeah, but it's fun to look at what the conspiracies are, for sure.
oh yeah,
I
yes,
enjoy
it
that
is.
as well. And it is hard sometimes, like wading through, like, okay, what is, the thoughts of crazy people
Right.
versus like what's actually happening here.
Yeah. I was like, let me get my tin hat on right now and read up on this one. Yeah. I love it.
For sure.
Yeah, I definitely also think that all of that is very interesting. I think that a lot of people are probably in the process of becoming a little on the frustrated side, because I think mostly what these people are saying is that our pilots or our agents or whatever have seen such and such things, but we don't actually know what they are. And that, I think, is probably the reason why, in my opinion, the reason why people tend to dismiss that personally, is because everybody wants as a human, you want somebody to be in charge. And when, the government, which is supposed to be the big monolithic thing that's in charge, has to say, we're not really sure, that scares the hell out of people, I think, because
Mhm.
there's supposed to be that's supposed to be the grown up in the room. And I do think that that's the reason why most people within the government have been hesitant. Like I think that the quote cover up, if there is one, is not that there's contact, it's that they see the same things that citizens see, and they don't have any better explanation than you or I do.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the closest thing to a conspiracy to me, is that lack
I
of
think they
control.
know.
Yeah. Deep down inside, I feel like they do know more than what we know, but I
I
get what
think
you're
so too.
saying. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
There's two sides to every story.
there
Certainly.
sure are.
But Brittany and I are just gonna keep believing in those, so
Yes,
just deal with that.
absolutely. I always say Rob Lowe said this. He did a show called The Lowe Files. If you guys have not watched it, it's hilarious. It's him and his sons, and they're going out on these adventures looking for Bigfoot and UFOs and all that stuff. And he said something along the lines of like, I don't know if any of this is real or not, but it's more fun to believe. And I feel that way. It is more fun to
Yeah,
believe.
it is. I agree. I want to know why you're skeptical of all this stuff.
Yeah.
So that is kind of one of the reasons why we called it what we called it for this podcast. Is I feel like the word skeptic has gotten a bad reputation, because there are a lot of people who just kind of have an axe to grind on something, that use the word skeptic to mean something that it doesn't really mean. A skeptic is somebody who knows that they don't have all the information and wants more information before they make a determination. Skeptic for me, like I think there's at least one person that kind of expected me to be kind of almost combative when talking about these things, because of that term that I had to kind of explain. It's like, no, listen, if you've had experience, then you've had experience. I may not agree with what your conclusion is about what's happening around you. I think that most of the things personally that people experience, um, probably have different explanations than what anyone thinks. And that mainstream thought on forward, most of what's considered to be mainstream thought on most of these things, I don't agree with. I think that we have um, a lot of bad faith actors within um, lots of levels of society that want everyone to believe and think a certain way. And, be that religion, be that government, be that, fill in the blank, really. But, do I think that there was something in your house that your friend and your kid experienced that made them feel bad? Absolutely. Is that a ghost? I don't know. Is it energy? I don't know. Is it time traveling thought waves from another, plane of existence? Because in reality, time is completely nonlinear. It makes no sense to us as people because we have small brains. I don't know. Maybe it's some combination of all those things. I do think it's interesting that, you know, as I mentioned before, we're seeing patterns of, you telling, you're giving something or someone the permission to move on, and they seem to be taking you up on it. And maybe that's something that energy, quote, however you want to determine it, can use. A letter and a piece of crystal is in the and I have a literature degree. I like words. I like language. I like the way we think about things. A letter and a piece of stone is a spell by the definition of what a spell is. A spell is a list of instructions and ingredients. That's all a spell is. You know, a recipe for soup is also technically a spell. So, you got information from a friend who is intuitive about things, and you follow the instructions, and whatever that was took you up on it, and now your kid could use the bathroom without being harassed. I call that a win.
I think, as you're talking, I'm just kind of like processing some things. And, if we're thinking about spirits as energy, my belief system is energy flows where intention goes, right? So, like, people who kind of subscribe to law of attraction. You believe that if you're putting your intention towards something, that you're going to direct the flow of energy. So with what you did with the letter and with the rose quartz, you were directing energy. It doesn't matter that it wasn't necessarily your energy, it was a spirit's energy. But I don't know. I mean, that's just a theory that I have of like, perhaps that's why that worked.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And John, I like how you said skeptic is seen as in a negative way, right? Like I didn't even think about that, because you're right. Like I use that with confrontation. You know, when I talk to my patients, they think confrontation is a bad thing, but there's healthy confrontation too. So I'm glad you said that. That I didn't think about that, and you're right. I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's a lot more open-minded than people would probably believe, especially people who know him, I think. But yeah, it's more about just like, we don't have all the answers. So it's like, instead of just having a narrative of this is how X, Y, and Z works, it's more of like, let's keep asking the questions. Am I portraying that right, Jonathan?
Yeah.
For you?
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, when I make dinner tonight, I'm gonna follow my recipe and imagine it's a spell. I'll never look at a recipe ever again. I'll live the same way.
Yeah. Put some Reiki in it for good measure too.
I will.
Love that. So you've had some experiences. You've been on a spiritual path for a long time. What questions do you still have about this? Any of it, I guess.
I don't know. I always have questions. You know, I always question why are things the way they are. So I'll always have questions, Brittany.
Which is good.
Yeah. So until we get some answers, you know, scientific evidence, as people tell me, show me scientific evidence, you know, that this happened. I'll just keep asking those questions and reading and learning about things and doing what I can do. You know?
It's important that we keep asking those questions.
Right.
Well, it was wonderful to catch up with you and talk to you about all this stuff today. So thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it a lot.
Thanks for
Cool.
talking to us.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you, John.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well.
Bye, Brittany. Keep doing all
Bye.
your amazing stuff.
You too.
All right.
Talk
Bye.
to you later. Bye. Thank you so much for being here. If you have a strange story you want to share with us, email us at seekerandskeptic@gmail.com. We look forward to talking to you soon.